Yo, it's been a while since my last upload.
And if you can believe it.
It's a new Parkitect video once again.
Look at that, a fresh new campaign. I thought it was time to rewire my brain to play without mods and go back to vanilla Parkitect. And what better way to start than with Meadows. The goals for the scenario are actually very easy and you start out with a big budget, so I can go a little extra with the teaming. I've got a few hours into the game already, so I'd like to think I know what I'm doing. Sort of. Alright. To start out, I always check the right selection and then the wheel starts spinning in my head with all these sort of teaming possibilities and layout plans. So for Meadows, I took inspiration from villages in the Eifel region in Germany. And I was imagining about all these autumn trees and a small river in between buildings with traditional German architecture. And of course a castle. You must know I love castles, by the way. And I might just brute force them into every single scenario. Anyway, looking at the right selection, I definitely want to go for the carousel, the calm river ride and the spinning coaster. The rest, we'll see what the research team will be cooking up. First things first, let's build a chill entrance area with a restaurant that is close to the depot. It is the first building and that means I got to have a feel for the theming and color scheme of the park. From there on out it's more layout planning and finally adding some rides. To do that I usually start with me landscaping and painting the terrain where I want buildings and rides to go. So here I built a small river to separate the entrance area and a part of the park where I want the main coaster to be. I didn't want to overwhelm the guests upon entering the park with crazy rides, so I started out with a cozy carousel. It slots in nicely between the traditional buildings and it's got a nice view of the riverside. Going a bit back though, it's been years since my first playthrough and I thought it would be fun to see what I can do now after playing the game for so long. I might even have a few old save files of all the scenarios, so it could be cool to compare them. Because let me tell you, my first scenarios, they were rough, man. I still really like mods though, and I'm not done with them. In fact, you can expect a few short diorama videos soonish. But yeah, this is vanilla Parkitect right there, which is more grid based and with way less pieces. And I like that though, because you can get a lot done in a semi-short amount of time. Which actually makes me think about Planet Coaster, which I haven't touched in a long time. Because my building style was just so slow. I didn't get a whole lot done every time I played. With Parkitect there are more limitations and I think I fare better when I'm confronted with limitations in a game. And it's pretty exciting to see where I can push the limits of what's possible. Anyway, here you see me building a wipeout. I've never actually been in one of these, but they look fun enough to me. They also have an older feel to them, so it will slot in nicely with the theming. Now onto the carousel. Here I learned to use fences as walls to get a different bit of texture, because some of the walls are just too plain in my opinion. You'll also see me skipping some stuff in the time lapses, because I want to either shorten the video or I didn't find it interesting myself or I just simply forgot to record. Because I can tell you I'm not very experienced with recording gameplay or making videos yet, so hopefully I'll grow more comfortable and find a video style that works for me. So I guess you're tagging along for the ride and seeing what will become of this channel. Continuing on though, I tried out a few details on the buildings and added some foliage and lighting around the carousel to wrap it up. The hard part is actually making the buildings not too plain, and to do that I'm adding all sorts of beams, windows and spires whenever I can. I didn't even have a lot of scenery items unlocked actually, but it was enough to pull off what I wanted to do. Another thing I love so much about Parkitect is that you can add all these sorts of planters and recolor the foliage. It's just so easy to make something look nice with a bit of nature. To finish off the carousel I added one more building purely for decoration. It really helps if you made a building already, so you can copy a lot of items very easily and maintain the same vibe. This building could actually be part of a staff building, but it might not be chill for the staff to constantly hear the carousel sounds banging through the walls, so it should probably be empty. I'll do a bit more detailing off screen and then let's check out the overview for the entrance area. So I mean, it's alright. I'll just leave the theming of the rest of the area for future me. Right now I'm more interested in building the spinning coaster. And I need to put out some disclaimers first. As I consider myself more of a casual coaster enthusiast, although I would know a lot more than the average theme park visitor. I just don't have a clue when it comes to a lot of roller coaster aspects. What I do when building a coaster is, I guess, what the manufacturer will be, in this case Mac Rides, and look up real life examples so I can copy a few elements that I think are neat. That's how I found out a coaster called Sierra Sidewinder existed. This coaster had a lot of similar vibes and elements that I wanted to copy for my park. Mainly just the first drop, which I made a bit bigger in my version because I wanted more intensity. Speaking of spinning coasters though, I'm actually going to ride one at the end of the month, as I'll be visiting Europa Park for the very first time, which I'm really excited about. The spinning coaster in that park is called Euromere, I believe, and it was opened in 1997, so I hope it won't be too rough. For this coaster though, I could see this being a fairly new addition to the park in a hypothetical timeline, and that means only silky smooth track for my guests. The tricky part of building a coaster for me usually starts at the end, when I need to figure out how to get the damn train back into the station in a way that's not too rough. It usually ends up being like, that'll do I guess, it's fine, just don't think about it anymore. And that reminds me, one thing I never really do, which I see a lot of other people do, is building transfer tracks. They don't actually function in the game, but they fit the game really well. I just don't have a clue how they actually work though, it's like black magic to me. Although now that I think about it, I might actually build some in the future, because part of the reason why I think Parkitect is so cool is because backstage stuff actually matters. So yeah, I'll definitely do some research on transfer tracks and try to feature them in the upcoming scenarios. And to finish up the coaster, I just need to build the paths for the queue, and as you can see I like to snake them through the coaster, so there's that nice path interaction, so guests can at least look up at the coaster while they wait. Here's a quick little station build. And oh boy, I had to delete my time-lapse footage for this one to save some actual disk space. Yeah, it's not a lot, it's rough out here man, just whatever. And then I kind of forgot about the goals here, and when I was chilling, building the station and trying out a spiral slide, I suddenly reached all the goals for the scenario. So, yes! I did it! The mighty Maple Meadows has been completed. But not actually though. I didn't want to stop building right there. I'd like to see the park a bit more developed, and that's where the castle theme will come into place. For that I need a small river ride. My essential ride in this park basically. It's there for the guests to relax and calmly enjoy the scenery, while also being the focus point for the new castle theme. For the layout I wanted to have interaction with the path and the coaster, because it just looks so nice. To draw on guests I'll build a castle around the station, but there's no reason why out of all these rides a small river ride would need a station this big. Yeah, why not? It's maybe not a great pitch to get a big loan, but you know, Curry State will always have my back. And with those funds I'll expand the ride a bit and get my castle in. Having a lot of rides is important, so I put in a twister as well. The idea for this flat ride is that it's become part of a small castle that's turned into a ruin at the edge of the river. One problem though, I don't even have the medieval theme unlocked in this scenario, so I'm a bit limited with the theming. I can make up for that with my foliage and rocks though. Good thing I also have access to a lot of basic shapes, so I managed to build a big tower, which somehow worked out with my limited scenery pieces. And to make my buildings look a bit more interesting, I just started building smaller towers everywhere. The queue for the twister is also very simple, but I'm content with the result. One of the things I wanted to learn while building in vanilla Parkitect again is to make simple structures look good. And that's suggestive of course, so not really a way to achieve that goal, but I find joy in the process of attempting to build with that mindset. It's not something I constantly have in mind while playing Parkitect though. What I do need to keep in mind are guest needs. That's something I forgot existed a few times in this scenario. Right here I saw that guests were complaining about there not being any high intensity rides in the park, which confirmed for me what the last ride would be, and that is the Enterprise. These things scare me so much in real life. I haven't been on one of these yet. Maybe they're fun, I wouldn't know. I've only seen one version in person, and that one is at Walibi Holland, which doesn't have a lot of theming going on. So maybe if there's one that's a bit more themed, I would dare to try it, but that's a big if. To finish up the park, I also wanted to have another restaurant, and that means building these yellow tubes all the way to the depot. And To my surprise, they actually fit under the river, so they're not even visible for the guests. As for the building, I just copied some pieces from previous buildings and added some plants. When the restaurant is done, all that's left is to add some minor details throughout the park, like a few more lamps and a few more trees and bushes here and there, and then the park will fully be completed. I'll add some neat overview shots at the end, and maybe at other places in the next videos. I'll have to experiment with that format, which will probably take up a few scenarios. Right now I'm just motivated to make every video better than the last one with each new episode of the campaign. I've already written down some ideas for future scenarios. Anyway, we're still on Maple Meadows, and my research team got me a few more scenery pieces, so I could give my restaurant a tiny bit more detail. The lighting in Vanilla Parkitect is pretty limited though, so I built some custom lamps, which I'll probably do for every new scenario. I actually thought Vanilla Parkitect wouldn't be fun again with such limited scenery available, but Maple Meadows has been a blast to play again, and I didn't even have a lot of teams unlocked, so I'm really curious to see what I'll be able to do with the other team pieces. I'm playing with both DLCs unlocked though, so I do have a lot of extra options when it comes to trees and bushes, and they're all really great actually. They're all resizable and they can all be recolored. It's an option I've used a lot and will continue to do so. When you do that, it adds just that extra bit of detail to your park. Quick before the end, just before the final shots of the park, I want to show the cool miniature trophy you get when you complete the scenario. I love these things, they're actually also a reason why I wanted to replay the campaign. I've already got the achievements, but it's nice to see it pop up again. And with that I also unlocked the next scenario, which will be Chinook Airfield. I can't say I'm a big fan of airports, so I might do a little remodeling. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you in the next episode of the campaign.